All right.
Can I just ask, by the way, do you hear better without your glasses?
No, it's because I'm doing visualizing, isn't it? So I'm going to sit back and I'm going to do what I did last week, which is look out of the lovely windows and dream mine up as we go along. No, I don't. Normally I have to have my glasses on to focus on what you're saying, but because this game is visualization, it's more magical than practical.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
So, what have you been up to then?
Well, shall I tell you about my week first?
Let's make a change.
I've made a surprise 4-day visit to Manchester, which I wasn't expecting to do when I spoke to you only 7 days ago.
No.
So after our podcast, or between podcasts last Thursday, somebody from the big house popped over and said, would you mind disappearing for 4 days because we want somebody to come and stay in here? So I panicked slightly, and having been to Birmingham, I think the day before, and seen signs to Manchester where one of my oldest friends lives, Susie from Manchester, who, as I tell her, is always called Susie-from-Manchester in my book and podcasts. I rang her up. I'll tell you more about Susie later, actually. I rang her up and she said, yes, come. So on Friday morning, I went up to Manchester, and when I was there, I remembered that I'd promised, if I was ever in the neighbourhood, to see Kath. Do you remember Kath, the PR lady who did a great podcast for us in about February? So I PM'd her to say, guess where I am? And she had 2 or 3 guesses. And I said, no, I'm in Manchester. And she said, oh, good, I'm coming to town tomorrow for a haircut. Where are you? And I told her I was in Longsight, which is, she hashtagged me edgy. She said, edgy.
Oh, okay. Oh, no.
Yeah. Hashtag urban, hashtag curry was what she sent me back. Anyway, transpires that she was having a very posh haircut in the centre of town, and Susie and I drove in to get her, and then brought her back to Susie's to hashtag edgy Longsight, where we had a very nice lunch. And then Kath is a PR, but she's training to be, I think I'm right, a medical herbalist. And Susie had this enormous pestle and mortar and offered it to Kath, and she said yes, which meant that we had to drive her home to Macclesfield because it was too heavy to carry on the train. So,
what do you mean? Steve had one.
Yeah, an enormous one that she wants for grinding up the herbs, obviously. And Susie had some long, complicated story, as Susie always does, about buying one in the post and they all arrived broken or something. I can't remember. It was broken, but Kath didn't seem to mind. So Susie and I have known each other for 43 years, so there was non-stop chatter and laughter for 4 days. I got totally behind in my online work, no time to read, no time to keep up to date, but I was having so much fun I didn't care.
Well, I'm deeply astonished and impressed.
Well, so was I, and so was Susie, but I'll tell you more about that later. So I got back on Monday, and on Tuesday morning, before I was properly awake, I was getting a series of texts from my sister-in-law, who's the same age as me, and on Monday evening had a hip replacement operation.
Good God.
I know. And but she sailed through it, so that's good. My mother had 2 hip replacements operations at the same age, and she I wouldn't say she sailed through. She certainly sailed through the first one, not the second one. But my brother tells me that, you know, the 6 weeks recovery is down to about 6 days now, and my sister-in-law will be back in the garden by next week, so that's quite good.
Yes. Sprightly Richard's had both his hips replaced.
Who has?
Sprightly Richard.
Has he? Tall Richard? Oh, yeah, okay. I wonder why. Is he a footballer or something?
Yeah, he was a footballer, yes. And it was really very painful, and sleeping at night was very painful, which is how I know I'm going to need some in the future, because my hips ache at night quite a lot.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, and I've got to move from here on the 6th, not the 8th, so I've got a 2-day gap en route to my next house sit. So I'm going with my complete trust in life, Esther, video. I don't know if you managed to listen to it last week.
I did, several times.
It's a nice one, isn't it?
Yeah, I like it.
Yes, good. Now tell me about your week.
Well, it's almost the complete opposite.
We often do that. Have you noticed?
Yeah, I have noticed. I haven't done anything as predicted. I did force myself to go for a walk around the block the other day, but and then I'm trying to work up to 5,000 steps a day, because as predicted, and my biggest worry about coming back was I don't go anywhere.
I know.
It's just frightening. I've got no reason to go out of the house whatsoever apart from the door.
Well, I haven't really. I might have to go to the dustbins today. I'll be lucky if I do 50 steps today, to be honest.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, that can be cured by just walking around the block, really. But the fact is, I thought to myself last night, I actually had a very, very stressful drive. Phoebe had a date last night, and she said, "Can you take me to Brighton?" And as I've got the use of a car, I thought it was only fair. But I'd forgotten that my driving experience over the last 3 years has been pottering about little lanes where the most dangerous thing to come at you is a herd of sheep. And I was unprepared, woefully unprepared for Brighton, which is in the grip of some major roadworks around the level, where the Prince's Palace is and everything. And we came down, and the sat-nav said turn left, and I turned left, and Phoebe said, "Oh my God, we're in a bus lane." I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, right." And then it took us all round the block again, because she was trying to get to this specific pub, and she was all dolled up, so she didn't want to didn't want to go walking in the drizzle as it was by then. So I went round the block again, and I said, "Okay, well, we can't do that. We have to take a left." And her panic at the idea of going against the sat-nav's instructions was palpable. And so anyway, I said, "Look, what'll happen is I'll turn left short of the road where the roadworks are, and the sat-nav will adjust. It will adjust, and it will suggest a new route. You watch." And she'd never done that before, so I said, "You don't have to be ruled by this woman. You can go off-piste, and she will adjust to suit." And so we finally got her to this pub, and then I had to drive. I thought, I'm not driving through Brighton again, so because people come at you from all directions, don't they? You have to really have your wits about you. And so I thought, I'm just going to drive north and get onto the motorway to go back to Shoreham. And it was so dark, Judith. I haven't driven on a motorway for so long. And it was so dark, apart from my headlights and this van behind me who was blinding me. And then I remembered that you had one of those, the mirrors tilt, don't they? So you can get the glare of the reflection out of your eyes. But I got home, and I was quite, I don't know what I was quite stressed out by the whole experience. And it was only driving to Brighton and back. So I think either I've got to do more of that or less of it.
Well, to be honest, driving's never been your thing, Nicola.
Well, I quite like it when I do a lot of it. I get quite confident then, but it's when I don't do a lot of it and I don't feel very confident. But I said to Phoebe, I said, "Tell this boy he's starting off on a sticky wicket already because you stressed your mother out getting him."
Yeah.
I call him a boy. He's obviously a man. But anyway, he seemed very nice, and I'm waiting to hear the update. But that's it on my week. I'm afraid I've been nowhere. I've had a frustrating week full of niggles. Everything has gone. Instagram sort of started deleting my posts spontaneously, and I thought that was another Facebook paranoia thing coming in, but it turned out just to be a regular glitch, and I Googled it and sorted it. But every single thing this week has been slow or frustrating or stopped me in my tracks. So
I saw one of my clients say on Facebook that she had such a similar week that she'd actually Googled to see if it was Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, that's how it felt.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, well, it felt a lot just techie, anti-techie this week.
And tell me, so in the middle of that, has anything fueled your fire?
Funnily enough, yes, it has, which is good because it didn't involve going out. You know how the universe throws things at you till you pay attention?
Yes, like stubbing your toe until you move house, that sort of thing, you mean?
Well, I was thinking more in rise of work. Because I try to ignore a lot of shiny objects that come my way nowadays. And I say to myself, well, if three people, if I hear about it from three people, I'll start to pay attention. And there's this thing called Bridge Pages that's been making its way to the surface recently. I was first talked about it last week because someone I know is doing a course by a guy called Mark Ling. He's actually promoted it in conjunction with two other people. And this course it's one of those courses that unless you're highly detail orientated, don't get involved in. So I knew it wouldn't suit me at all, but my friend is very detail orientated and he's really ploughing through it. And he showed me his spreadsheets he was making. And, I like a nice spreadsheet, but I like a nice simple spreadsheet. And these were not simple. So I was thinking, oh, that's good. I'm glad I'm not getting involved. But what he said, one of the best things about it, and in fact, it's something I picked up on from watching the promotional video, was these bridge pages and how effective they are now. Because you can't send people straight from cold traffic to a sales page. We've known that for years, but these bridge pages are just a 2-minute video of you talking to camera about why people should pay attention to what they're about to see on the next page.
And is that the only format, a 2-minute video?
Well, a 1-minute video, any kind of length of video.
So a video. But it's got to be a video, has it?
It has, unfortunately. But I'll tell you why. Because nothing else has the impact of you talking straight to camera and enthusing about something.
I'm not sure that's true, and I think I'm going to go on to prove you wrong in my field of fire. But I'm clicking out of my interest now while you finish this story for the benefit of the listener.
Okay, well, it's especially important for affiliate marketing because obviously when you're sending someone, and I realised this was very apropos for me because I'm obviously, as you know, swapping all my affiliate traffic over to somewhere else. And I wanted to make sure that people realised what they saw when they got to the next page because I felt I had some input on why they should pay attention. And I thought, this is perfect for a bridge page. And the other reason it's good for people who do affiliate marketing is because when you're sending someone straight to someone else's page, sales page, you don't get to track the traffic.
I can see that. So you can introduce them to what's coming up.
Yes, and then you can cookie that page and make a Facebook audience or a Twitter audience or a YouTube audience out of it by putting the pixel on the page. And so I thought, well, okay, there's 4 different things I'm recommending from these other people. So I'm going to make 4 different landing pages, bridge pages. And then that'll tell me which one of those things is most popular from my high traffic page. So it had a lot to recommend it, but it took me a bit of a while to screw up my sitting in front of video things. I don't actually find it that easy to do, although once the camera's rolling, I'm fine. It's the thought of it is always much, much worse than the doing of it. But so I thought I'd just share that with everyone because then just after that, someone else who I respect enormously, Jim Edwards, do you remember him?
Vaguely, yes.
Yeah, he was a bit of a maverick copywriter and he invented the first Internet Marketers Cruise. And he's still around and he's still doing good work on the copywriting front. And he started talking about bridge pages as well. So I sort of thought yesterday, no, it's time for me to make one now because it's coming at me from all angles. So,
and is it free or does it come with a cost or what?
No. If you can make a page, you can make a bridge page. It's literally just a headline.
I see. Okay.
And a click to find out more button.
Right.
And then you embed your pixels on it.
So it's a theory rather than a software.
Yes, it's a principle. Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I haven't got any results yet, but I'll report back next week.
Roger. And what's fueled my fire is, as I foretold to you last Thursday afternoon, I was on episode 40 of Art Juice, Alice and Louise's podcast.
Oh, yeah. Talking
about my work with Alice as a client and celebrating our coaching relationship of 5 years. It was very, very moving. It was out yesterday. It's been very well received.
Well,
lovely feedback. New listeners for Own It, new Facebook friends, and contrary to what you were saying just now about the only way, an inquiry about a new client directly from it this morning.
Oh, okay. So I'm not saying the only way is video, because I know audio and podcasts work brilliantly as well. So, but I'm just saying when you arrive at a page, a static page.
I get it. It's just very dull, Nicola. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Well, it's dull for you, yeah.
Yeah, but now I want to go back to Alice's podcast because what was really interesting about it, and she was on somebody else's podcast yesterday, and we both described when you're on somebody else's and they want to talk about you, it can feel a bit ego-y. And I listened to it 2 or 3 times thinking, oh, it's very me. And then different listens, different things came out of it. But I've never really had an opportunity before to talk at length about my work in a public arena, a space that wasn't my own, so either ours or mine, and examine it and share what I've learned about it. Alice does a bit of coaching for an American artists program and in her own right in a group, and I was able to tell her what I think are the risks of it as well. So there are costs involved, I think, emotional costs involved in putting all of your energies into somebody else's activities. She's already thought of questions she wished she'd asked me. So at some point further down the line, quite a long way down the line, I think we'll do an episode 2, which is good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you tell us where we can listen to this?
Well, the podcast is called Art Juice. I don't know how to find it without going and looking for that and linking to it. But I'll do that in the show notes.
Yeah, because it would be lovely. And the other thing
I think if you Google Art Podcast Art Juice, you'll find it. Alice and Louise. But I'll put it in the show notes as well. It's episode 40.
And the other thing that occurs to me is because it's you being interviewed by someone else, that gives you greater authority. And then you get to talk about your work, which would really inform potential clients rather well, wouldn't it? So that might be nice to put on your website.
Yes, I might, yeah.
I know you're not particularly, working on that at the moment.
No, I'm not. No, in fact, Alice gives my website a good slagging off in the show. I should have said to her, how very dare you?
Yes. I can't wait to hear that.
Yes, she says to everybody, don't be put off by Judith's website. It's horrible, or words to that effect. I said, I absolutely love my website. You can stick off with your comments about it.
It's there. I went to check the other day, and it was there. So I thought, oh, thank God for that.
Well, only because I was being on Alice's podcast. Once the effect of that is over, it probably won't be there anymore. Yeah. Anyway, never mind. Yeah. Now, focus of the week. Let's move on to that. I haven't rehearsed this. I've had a few thoughts about it. I'm thinking of calling it Happiness Part 2. It's the question we put aside last week because you thought it was the harder of the two.
Yes.
And I'll just reiterate what it is in case anybody didn't listen. It's ask yourself, if everything is up for grabs and nothing is a given, what would I want to create in the world and how would I go about creating it? Just let the answer bubble up from your unconscious. Don't analyse it or ignore it. Let it percolate and simmer. And in the weeks to come, you'll find yourself living it out one step at a time. Okay, Nicola, if everything is up for grabs and nothing is a given, what would you want to create in the world and how you go about creating it?
Well, let me preamble a little bit because I was feeling a lot of resistance towards this one, and I didn't know why, but I have done a bit of prep, which you'll be surprised by. First of all, I found myself, even when trying to think about it, I found my brain sliding away sideways and wanting to get distracted by anything else like Instagram. I also had a negative reaction to the word grabs. Everything is up for grabs. I didn't like the word grab, but
it just means everything's. You're allowed to choose anything, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does. Yes. Yeah. And then I had a second reaction to the phrase "nothing is ever a given." And I thought you could take that in both two ways, can't you? It means that nothing is ever taken for granted. So when nothing is ever a given, it means that you can't make assumptions and that nothing can be taken for granted. And then the other thing is that so you have to.
I think it just means first phrase just means you've got total freedom to create whatever you want. What would you create and how would you go about creating it?
Well, then I realised that I was reading it as nothing is ever given, rather than nothing is ever a given.
Yeah.
So I was having a little.
I think it means you don't have to do X; you could do Y. Is how I read it.
Yes, but I had to get over myself about the nothing is ever given. So
yes, most unlike you to pay so much detail to 6 words or 8 words.
I know. I was surprising myself. Anything rather than answer the question.
Yes, funny.
But I have come up with several answers that.
Oh, marvellous! I'm going to sit back in my chair.
Are you?
While you tell me what they are.
All right then. Well. There is this house in Stoupa. It's above the bay, and it's.
Can I just say this is already going much better than I thought it would. There is this house in Stoupa already. I'm excited. Let me tell you.
Well, it's not just a house; it's a house on land, and it's planning permission for 12 apartments apparently.
Mm.
And it is, funnily enough, in a position that is quite unusual in Stoupa because they're not allowed to build more than first ground floor and first floor.
But you're saying it's up high.
It's up high.
Yeah.
And I realised last year when I was looking at it, thinking it's lovely. It's got blue shutters and a red roof, and it's just perfect. But it's very run down, and it's owned by lots of different people. So apparently it's also extremely expensive. People are saying it's 3 million minimum because of the land. And I've often thought, whenever I do my meditations, when you do meditations, they send you off to your happy place.
Yeah.
There's whenever they say, imagine yourself in 10 years' time, you wake up in this, and you imagine the room you wake up on, and you walk out. For me, it's a white painted room with white curtains and all that stuff. And I walk out onto my balcony and it overlooks the Bay of Stoupa. And until I noticed this house, I didn't think there was any high bits overlooking Stoupa. So this house is absolutely the house that I meditate about without even realising it existed. So that was interesting when I realised that too.
A little bit spooky.
Yeah, a little bit spooky indeed. It's too big a deal. And then just recently...
Hang on a minute. Nothing is a given. It's not too big a deal. It's a deal.
Well, it is for me because I've been through the hotel experience, and that was a big deal, which I achieved. But I wouldn't want to go back into a big deal like that with certain provisos, though, I realised as I thought about it a bit more. So I wouldn't want to go into a big deal like that, no money down, because you end up with massive repayments, which put a monstrous amount of pressure on the earning potential of any deal like that. I have actually come across someone who can get mortgages in the UK very easily, properties overseas.
Yes.
So it's inched a bit closer, that deal.
Yeah.
Whether I want it to or not.
Yeah. Just by thinking about it, or actually the mortgage man came up before we started to think about these streams, didn't it?
Yes, he did. But one of the things is that he was introduced by a friend of mine who's been to Stoupa and who knows I've got this 3 million deal in my head. So anyway, I keep, I push that one away. And then I thought, what else does it mean? What else would I want to create? Well, I'd like to create 100 members of Clicks and Leads Academy, which would be a 10 grand a month income, which would be extremely comfortable for me, but not big enough. Because then I started to think, well, on what conditions would I take on a big deal like that? It would be if I had a monthly income myself that was independent of the deal. That would make me less scared of a big deal. So that was interesting. And I thought, okay, so what does a healthy monthly income look like and how could it be most delightfully achieved? And the 100 members of Clicks and Leads Academy would be extremely delightful because I love doing that.
I think that's what you're headed towards anyway.
It's hard going though, Judith, in terms of, well, having said that, I did attract a client last week who comes back from the mists of time, who literally works for someone who puts on these really big internet marketing and property events. And she's saying that she wants to move, create something for herself because she can see that business model, which we've known for a long time, is sort of going down the pan a bit, get a load of people in a room and sell them stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it was, so I actually attracted her out of nowhere. I must ask her, what was it that brought her back? Or did she see a video?
Well, I think she probably always known you were there. She was just ready, wasn't she?
Yeah, but something must have reminded her about me because honestly, it's
I don't think so. I think if you're in UK and you'd ever been in your remit and you were going to start to do what she's thinking of starting to do, you'd be in the back of her mind. I mean, this is what we always say is how long it takes the clients to come.
Yeah, absolutely. But, in order to get to 100 or even 1,000 members, which would be even more delightful, because 1,000 members would be 100,000 a month, and that would certainly enable you to get into a deal of 3 million without worrying about it at all. That would be totally delightful. So what would one need to do? And so I've started to think about that. And then number 3, I thought, okay, so another way to do a good, healthy monthly income that would make me feel abundant enough to do a big deal like that would be 10 locations for Stoupa Life. So it's not just Stoupa Life, it could be Kalamata Life, it could be, somewhere else life. And that would be 50 grand a month income divided by 2 because I have a partner on that one. That's quite a respectable amount of money. And then 100 locations, because of course Stoupa Life doesn't depend on me at all. It's just a process and a software. 100 locations would be 500 grand a month. Now you could certainly do a 3 million deal in about 5 months flat. So my brain automatically is getting bigger and bigger.
Well, actually, no. On number 2 and 3, it's gone logical. And number 1 fits exactly the brief, which is everything's up for grabs and nothing's a given. It's all about dreaming this. Yeah. And in fact, you've done what all my clients do, which is in order to have the thing I really want, I've got to go around the houses. And that's actually with the opening sentence on the podcast I did with Alice, which is, I've got the right to do this. And I think the game here is you just dream about the big house and then you see it turning up. You turn the steps turning up and it may not be overnight, may not be by next week, may not be by next year. But the point of this, I think, is allowing possibilities, not logical answers, not logical steps.
Yeah. Well,
it's quite hard. It's not something we generally do. We're not really dreamers. We're quite practical, you and me.
Yeah.
You especially, I think.
Yes, because that's what I do for my clients. Is I help them turn their dreams into, okay, so what do you need to do to get there?
And what the question says is, you don't really need to do anything except work out what you want. And sort of, so actually, maybe when you're doing your meditation, just take it a bit further, really. Do you see yourself in the middle of it rather than looking at it? What's that thing we're all supposed to do when we're in a vision? We're not supposed to look out at ourselves from the outside in.
I'm in it.
You're in it, looking out. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm feeling it. I can feel the warmth of the patio under my feet. I can feel the warmth of the sun. I can hear the waves lapping on the shore. I can hear the distant cries of children playing on the beach. I'm in it, full on.
And is it a fantasy, or is it something you think, wouldn't it be wonderful if...
Fantasy, because I didn't think the house existed.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was. I thought I'd have to go somewhere else.
Well, there you go. That's what it says here. Let me get my glasses. I've taken them off to listen to you. Hang on a second. And that's what it says here. It says, in the weeks to come, you'll find yourself living it out one step at a time. So the first step was that you discovered that actually such a house did exist.
Yes.
Second step is there's a man that can get you a mortgage if you want. And, I don't think the mortgage is the only route.
Well, I'd have to marry someone super rich.
No, you see. No, I don't think you would. I think there's quite a lot of ways to make that happen.
Well, I'm scared of it happening, though, so I'm pushing it away with the practicalities, Judith.
Well, it may be that somebody else funds it and you
oversee it.
Yeah.
And get to live there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You make it a reality. You make it a reality.
Yes.
I'm off podcast. I'm going to sell you an idea about this because I've seen somebody else do something similar.
Okay.
All right.
Can I just ask, by the way, do you hear better without your glasses?
No, it's because I'm doing visualizing, isn't it? So I'm going to sit back and I'm going to do what I did last week, which is look out of the lovely windows and dream mine up as we go along. No, I don't. Normally I have to have my glasses on to focus on what you're saying, but because this game is visualization, it's more magical than practical.
I've got number 4 if you're interested.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'd like to create money out of money. And that means, well, I've learned to trade stocks and cryptos, and it's so simple and so uncomplicated and so unemotional. I would like to do more of it. I like the fact that you can, it's a very visual thing as well because of the charts. You're looking at the charts and you're seeing patterns in the charts. And I really have not turned out to be too bad at that. So I'm really enjoying growing my little nest egg in that way.
Can I tell you something before you go on to tell me your next 3? I did my brain training this morning, and surprisingly, because I'm not using a calculator, it's telling me how good I am at maths. I find that quite surprising. But there's one of the games where you have to fill in the numbers in the gaps that either add up or subtract or whatever. Do you know what's really interesting? I worked out this morning I'm doing this by spotting a pattern, not by maths. I'm visualizing maths answers. I'm seeing maths answers, not calculating maths answers.
Wow.
I know.
That's a really impressive thing.
Well, I was amazed. I was gobsmacked. Anyway, carry on with where are we? About 4, 5, and 6.
No, I've just done 4. That's all.
Okay, right. We've got 5, 6, and 7.
What? Sorry? No.
Oh, I thought you said I've got 4 more. Are you interested?
No. I've got another one. It's number 4.
Right. Okay. And you've done it. You've done it, or you've done all of them.
Yeah.
Done all of them. Okay. I've got about 3, I think.
Okay.
And I don't really know where to start. And I've been putting off thinking about this, although it's always in my mind as well, if that makes sense. I've been putting off thinking about the specifics, which I think is good because I think she's saying don't think about the specifics. So listen, let me start with a little bit of preamble, which is what you said, I think, as well. If you'd asked me a year ago what I thought my 3rd career would be about, I would have said, what would I have said? A writer.
Oh, okay.
I haven't written anything since March and I haven't missed it.
Oh, that's interesting. So
haven't written a newsletter, haven't written a blog, nothing. Felt not inspired in the least to go into the written word anywhere. And I think it's because, for me, I don't know if you ever remember when I did that Joshua Field's Milburn writing course. And there was all these questions in the preamble, and I was the only one that got it right. What's writing all about? It's about communication. I think it's because I'm feeling fully expressed in our podcast. I'm communicating with the world through the spoken word instead of the written word. I am communicating with the world. I need an outlet for that, but I don't need to be a writer anymore. So what that does is it makes me perfectly clear to invent something which seems, I think, in keeping with this question, but it's much bigger and I have no idea. I've vaguely got an idea how it's going to happen, but might happen, might not, which is I want my third career to be philanthropy. And I've already written the book, which is called From Penury to Philanthropy. I just haven't published it yet because the final step hasn't happened. But I'm hovering on the cusp and have been for quite a long time of life-changing sums of money. And it's not just my life that will change. So the 3 iterations of how I would help people are, I really have got to do, I think all 3 of these are, yes, they are. They're all to do with experiences that I have had, and either people helped me with it or didn't help me with it, and I want to be part of the solution. So the first one is the WASPy women. There are these women aged 60 who have contributed to their pension for 40 plus years and had it stolen by the government as times stand by 6 years. And that's made a big difference to me, because suddenly from nowhere you get notice that something that you'd factored into your cash flow for 6 years isn't going to be there. And it's part of the reason why I'm a digital nomad without a home of my own. But many women are far worse off than me who've killed themselves. Dinner ladies and lollipop ladies and people like that who've been divorced. Their circumstances are so appalling that they've topped themselves, because they didn't know how to pay for themselves. And if you can't pay for yourself and you're alone because you're divorced or widowed or you've never got married. So this has to be women who are alone, like me, single, because there's no support. If you've been self-employed and single, there's absolutely zero support from that. So I've been lucky to attract it from friends, and I've been lucky to be able to be a trusted house sitter. But if you couldn't do or have either of those, women have had very miserable lives in those times. And actually, I believe, as you know, that if it was men, it wouldn't have been allowed to happen. But anyway, the point is, it's 6 years for women of my age, but it's going to be 8 years soon for women younger than me. And then it's going to be 10 years. So there's this funding gap in the lives of women, which is worse in the lives of self-employed women, because there's not really any such thing as a self-employed pension. An employed pension is where your employer matches your contribution and creates a meaningful sum of money. But a self-employed pension is a very expensive thing and isn't matched by anything else. So you end up with diddly squat, basically. And as you know, I diversified and created my own pension out of property, but then the government taxed us like the scum of the earth. So there's these women, single, self-employed women in their 60s with a funding gap. So my philanthropy will, first of all, want to help women like that. Second of all, it will want to help women like I met, single parent women, like the woman I met in the beauticians in Flitwick, who said to me, not knowing I might be in a position to help her, she would love to study to be a reflexologist, but it was going to cost £2,000. And what she would like would be somebody to lend her that and for her to pay it back monthly or something. And the third one is something that Sharon and I discussed 10 years ago, which is the Entrepreneurs Bank. There's no bank for self-employed people. All my clients say, which is the best bank? And I go, they're all the same. They're rubbish. They're not interested in doing business with people like us. We don't really have lending propositions. Now, there is peer-to-peer lending on these funding circles and things like that. And I do know at least one of my clients has taken advantage of that. But all 3 of these would be much more philanthropic to that. So they wouldn't be loans. They would be grants or some kind of funding where if it's paid back, that's great. And if it's not paid back, that's great. Because you can't put, somebody in my position for the last 6 years, who's, a dinner lady who hasn't got any money, you can't lend her money.
No.
You give her money. Yeah, you give her money to help her out through that gap. And then once she's back on her feet, because her pension kicks in and she's got a home again or whatever it is that she wants again, if she wants to pay that forward in any way that she likes, that's great. And that can be part of the network and the plan. But single women, single self-employed women, single mum self-employed women, and just self-employed people generally, some sort of philanthropic modern thinking about what is it they need? Is it is it a loan? Is it grant funding? Is it an interest-free loan? Is it something where I've got a lump of capital that's earning interest and I can lend the interest, but they don't have to pay interest? I don't know what it is, but it has to be mending the ways in which our world is broken and has created, there's no other word for this and I don't want to use it, but I'm going to have to do it, victims.
Yeah. Is there any way, just listening to you, I started to think, is there any way to set up some sort of charitable foundation where people who have money and successful women contribute to that fund without it having to be your money that starts?
I'm sure there is, but again, like the ideas I had for your idea, that doesn't fit in with my idea. Do you see what I mean? When you've got the idea and you're holding the vision, that isn't what I want to set up.
Right.
And this would probably might involve a charitable foundation. And once I've kicked it off, other people might want to be involved in that. But being a creator entrepreneur, I would want my vision to start with me. And ironically, I wouldn't be the face of it or the
name of it.
No, nothing. It would be anonymous because you can't say to the world I'm a philanthropist, because then you get calls on it from all directions. So you'd have to it's Secret Millionaire-ish.
Yeah.
What I'd love to be able to do for that girl in Flitwick is phone the salon, find out her details secretly, and have an intermediary get in touch and say, somebody who wants to remain anonymous would like to give you £2,000 to study reflexology.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
If you want to pay it back in the future, here's 2 ways of doing it. If you don't, you can pay it forward by giving free treatments to people in need to the tune of the equivalent of the interest or whatever it is. I haven't thought any of it through, because the point of this game, it seems to me, is not the detail. It's the impossible dream to dream, the impossible dream. It's an impossible dream that might come true if we are in a woo-woo space with it, which is you hold it in possibility.
If you dare to think bigger.
Yes, actually, not do the practical steps. Yes. Yeah. I think you and I are too quick often to go to the practical steps and think it's all got to be down to us.
Yes.
And I don't think that's the game here, and I think it really is a game. If you had your vision up there up the top, would it make you happy? Because I think this is happiness part 2. Or is this about, what is this about if it's not about happiness?
Well, the other 3 are not about happiness necessarily, although I do love coaching, and I love turning up on a Thursday and having a call and helping people move forward one step in a week. But the house would just be pure happiness, because it would be, somewhere for me to live the rest of my life and come backwards and forwards to, and the apartments would make the income that would enable me to live comfortably for the rest of my life, because obviously I'm in the next bracket of women that you talked about.
Yeah.
And it would just, it would just be something to leave to my children, so that their families could have wonderful holidays. It's all about happiness for me and other people.
Well, brilliant. Then let's leave it there, you see. Yeah. Let's not go to the practicalities. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, we've got plenty to be getting on with.
Yeah. It's like, Theo came round last night, who stayed for a week in my house after.
Yes, he's the man that was tasked with bringing home the coffee thing.
He did, yes, and he brought a few more things. Yes, as well. But he was just so, raving about it, and he just said, "Oh, Nick, you've got to buy a house out there, because we would love to go and stay again." It was so wonderful. He'd never experienced a holiday like it, really. He'd always been built up to commercial kind of places.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you went a bit like St. Martin for me. You went to Stoupa and you went back, and it was your happy place.
Yeah.
So funny that we're talking about happiness. I mean, if you get that place up the top, we'll have to call it My Happy Place or Nicola's Happy Place, or what's the Greek for happy place? Let's find out.
I don't know. The happy house.
Yes.
Yeah. The happy place. So I'll find out what the Greek word is.
Okay.
And yes, so there you go. That was a good topic, Judith. Very well thought of.
Well, I think everything's up for grabs and nothing is a given. So we don't have to be limited by real world practicalities. Let's see if we can make a miracle manifest. You never know who's listening.
You don't. That's true.
Yes,
that's true. Some property mortgage.
Well, we're just putting the vibe out into the world, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
What is your word of the week, Nicola Cairncross?
I've got a complete blank. All the prep I've done around this episode, and I've not written a word down. So
I've got 2 words. I've got 2 words.
Okay.
Squeamish. I've got squeamish.
Oh, yeah.
And or relish. And I'll tell you what happened. It happened in the texting I was doing with my sister-in-law on Tuesday morning. She said, I've got to inject myself every day for 6 weeks. Do you think, what are the chances of getting your brother to do it? And I went, given how squeamish the Morgans are about jabs, I think that's extremely unlikely. And then I went, however, you know how he relishes surprising us. And she went, I already know he won't do it. So squeamish is my word of the week.
It's a good one. Well, I've come up with contentment, because thinking about my reluctance to leave the house, it's because I'm perfectly content here.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice feeling.
Have you got anything in project updates?
Oh, I've got a few. Yeah, I have actually.
Good, go.
Well, Right Club, the podcast, is coming to its natural end. We've decided to pull a veil over it at episode 100.
Okay.
Because it's getting more and more difficult.
And are you about 80 something?
No, we're up to, they've just recorded 95, 96, and
Okay.
they've got 3 more to do.
Okay.
I'm contributing virtually, so I'm recording my bits, and then they play my bits in the meeting and discuss what I've said.
And that's what we're doing with one of ours upcoming, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is.
Hmm.
And so that's, we're leaving obviously the Facebook group and everything, because it'll just sit there, because we decided that there weren't many more topics to cover. And although we might come across the odd author we want to interview occasionally.
I think also you were the prime mover in many respects. And you were
No, Steph was, actually.
Oh, okay, okay.
She's got some, she's selling our house in England and got quite a lot on at the moment. Not least of which is 24 people coming to stay for half term.
Oh, God.
I said, well, you are certifiable.
Yes, quite.
She loves it, though. It's her thing, having a family round and cooking.
Yeah.
Right, so there's that. I haven't looked at the Own It stats, but I imagine they're similar to
I think monthly is enough.
Yeah. But then one of the things I've picked up this week, which has inspired me a little bit, is the screenwriting thing. And I was sitting in bed the other day, and I could see out of the corner of my eye a very small pile of books I brought back from Greece, one of which was a book called Dialogue by Robert McKee, and he wrote a very well-known book called Story, which is about... Yeah,
I know Robert McKee. He's a good bloke.
Well, I started idly flicking through this dialogue thing and got sucked into it and thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I thought, okay, so if I was going to progress the screenwriting thing at all, how would I go about it, given now that I'm in England and I can get to things? So I thought, I'll start looking for a screenwriting course. So I found one on FutureLearn. FutureLearn is a fantastic source of free education, by the way, everyone. Go and have a look. And it was the University of East Anglia, which has got a very good creative writing. It does, yes. And so I went through the course, and I realised halfway through I'd done it before. But I did it when I was in Australia last time, so obviously I jumped about a bit. And then I came out of that and thought, okay, so where would I go next? And because it had got me going a little bit. So then I thought, okay, so I did a search for screenwriting courses, and I found the BBC Writers' Room and Channel 4's screenwriting course, which is run by a guy called Philip Shelley. And Philip Shelley also does mentoring. So he will mentor you through your screenplay, and he's been very successful himself. So I thought, oh, that's quite an interesting idea. And then I caught myself, Judith, and I thought, you're already pre-spending the money you're anticipating earning from this gig you start on the 1st of November. I've got to stop doing that. I keep not piling up the cash in a nice little cushion because I keep reinvesting in my business. I
kept saying that to you when we were in business together. We can't reinvest everything we make all the time, because then we get nothing to show for what we've done.
Well, absolutely. So I'm trying to stop myself doing that. So I pulled back on the brink of that one. But there's quite a lot going on. There's quite a lot, stuff. So really what I've got to do now is I've just got to start writing my screenplay.
Yes.
Because I know what to do. I know how to do it. I've got books, lots of books. And if I've got a screenplay, I can then go and get someone to look at it rather than be mentored through the very...
Yes.
But what I'm trying to do there, I think, is I'm trying to put myself in a position where I have to do it, because all the time it's just down to me. And it's interesting, so there's business analogies here. I'm not like this with businesses.
Yeah, I know. You're not. No, you're not. No.
I crack on with it. But
I think it's because we have to crack on, otherwise we're not earning a living.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But this one, I feel like I need to go on a course to make me actually do something around it.
I think my clients do that. They do endless courses because they think they're not good enough yet. Yeah.
Well, it's not that I don't think I'm good enough yet. It's that I'm not actually doing it on my own. So I feel the need. I need to be put in a room somewhere where you.
Or you just make Friday screenwriting day, and you lock yourself in a
No,
room.
I'm not going to do it, Judith. I know that. I'm not going to do it because I would have done it by now.
Well, then I think you're not highly motivated enough. There was the course on that lovely website called, I think it was called Masterminds, which had a lovely golden black logo, and there was the Aaron Sorkin. There was the Aaron Sorkin Mastermind. Free. I think it was free.
Memberships to that, and I haven't got one of them.
Yeah.
Because watching people talking about something is not the same.
Well, it could be a way of starting Screenwriting Friday. I'll just watch an hour and then I'll do some screenwriting.
Oh, okay. Just get the file out.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, there you go. So that's where I'm up with my projects.
Okay. So I haven't got any, of course. Well, I'm going to go first on this one. Susie impressed me because I rang her with no notice on Thursday and said, can I come and stay for the weekend? And there was hesitation in her voice because it turned out she had an evil sinus infection and a very painful back. But she'd always said to me, she was one of those, I've got 3 or 4 of them, there's always a bed for you here if you need it. And I called her on it on Thursday to come on Friday. And actually I thought I'd booked Friday night and Saturday night and I'd drive back on Sunday. But actually then somebody came round and said, no, our guest's not leaving till Monday morning. So I had to drive up the motorway knowing I'd booked 2 nights with Susie and that she was poorly and that I would need to ask for a third when I got there, which she embraced very well. She said she was quite poorly and wouldn't be able to tidy up or clean for my arrival. And I said, really honestly, but she'd done both of those by the time I arrived, tidied up, cleaned and made my bed for me. It was a surprise, nay, a shock. On Saturday, I invited Kath round, so there were 3 of us. Spontaneity is not my middle name, so I was quite impressed with myself too, actually. But I enjoyed the drive up the motorway. It was very quick coming back down. I enjoyed being with Susie. Last week we talked about Leslie, who I'd known for 50-something years. I've known Susie for 40-something years. That you've got friends who can say yes at less than 24 hours notice that you're coming to stay for 3 or 4 days and rise to the challenge, appear to enjoy it despite being poorly. She's actually retired, but she's a volunteer. She runs a food bank. And on Friday, she was driving the car to harvest festivals that they have in schools at half term to collect cans of things for the food bank. And when I left on Monday morning, she had more collections to do. So, it's not like she had a social life planned for Saturday night, but actually she was pleased to have me as the excuse not to do it. She either rolled in with everything I wanted to do or I rolled in with everything she wanted to do. She went off to Asda on Saturday morning to get lunch for me and Kath. What a friend.
What a trooper.
What a friend and what a trooper. Actually, like me, her dad was a general in the army, so she is a trooper and so am I. And her mother is in a home with a dementia and doesn't know her. And, you just so lucky to have a friend like that. Yeah,
that is amazing.
Isn't it?
Well done, Susie.
Yeah, Susie -from-Manchester.
Okay.
And actually, Kath said to her, which is so lovely, Kath said to her, she talks about you all the time, which is true because she was in my book. And after she gave up a career of teaching, she was a maths genius where she taught teachers how to teach maths well. So she and I've got maths in common as well, which we didn't have originally because she was a human biology teacher or something.
You ought to tell her about your thing of seeing patterns in the numbers.
Oh, I think, she definitely knows that because there's this wonderful story where when she first got into it, she asked us all in a party to do a sum in mental arithmetic. And then she asked us all to tell her how we did it, and we'd all done it differently. And when I announced how I'd done mine, my brother went, "Oh, Jude," as if to say, what a dreadfully complex... He basically was critical of my way of doing it. She said, it doesn't matter. As long as you've got a way of getting to the answer, it doesn't matter how you do it. And the maths teaching is enabling people to do their shopping and see the numbers on the bus and work out enough maths to get through their life. It doesn't matter how you do it.
And that's the whole thing about our focus for today, isn't it?
Yes.
We're dreaming big and then not worrying how you get there.
Exactly right. Now tell me who or what's impressed you.
Okay, 2. You'll like this one. Paul Fugel. He has released a book called Backwards Planning, which I'm delighted to say is actually very good. It's always a worry, isn't it, when your friends release a book and you think, oh, God. But no, it's very good. It's very Paul Fugel. It's very he's an interesting mix, isn't he? Because he's a big picture kind of thinker, but he can also get down in the woods with the detail. And the book is a good mixture of new strategic tools I hadn't come across before. But also it's very simple and clear thinking. I read it in a few hours in the morning, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And it made me want to get the old pad out and start do a few things around my business. So well done, Paul.
Good.
It's called Backwards Planning, and it's available on Amazon now. And then I just watched a video this morning called, in a bid to escape answering the questions, Douglas Kruger, How to Escape Poverty. Is Your Thinking Keeping You Back? And again, it's all stuff we know, but he comes at it from a few different angles, which makes you think, I hadn't thought about it like that. So if you're wondering why you're not doing as well as you could do, go and check out his 8 principles for how your thinking might be holding you back. Douglas Kruger on YouTube.
Okay.
Very good.
Lovely. If you've got it still in your cache, you could send me a link and I could put it in the show notes.
I'll send you a link.
I can find Paul's book easily, obviously.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
That's us then. We're done.
Yes, it is. I'll see you next week.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.